Hey y'all, it's Pastor Matt here, the young adults pastor at Grace Community Church. We're going to do another session of our series called Singin in the Pain. It's a series on Psalms about suffering. And so we're going to talk about Psalm 23 today. And it's kind of funny because I had planned this series a while back, but it's amazing how it really applies right here in the season we're in with COVID-19 coming through. And so today I want to talk about this. I want to talk about what do we really need to get through this? What do we really need to get through this COVID-19? What kind of leadership do we need? What do we need to make it? So I want to start Psalm 23, verse 1 says, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." The Lord is my shepherd. And so you look here and there's all these images for God in the Bible about, a warrior or a physician. And they kind of make sense, like I would want God to be my, another profession, just not a shepherd. A shepherd makes no sense. A shepherd is a dirty role that gets in the dirt. Maybe God is my attorney, or maybe God is my accountant, or maybe God is my king, or my, lawyer. Well, maybe not a lawyer, but God could be any other role but shepherd. It really makes no sense. It's really dirty. Until you think about this psalm, this 23rd psalm is actually written by David, and David himself is a shepherd. He starts off his life as a shepherd. And you look before David was king of anything, it's the nation of Israel is getting their butt kicked under Saul's leadership as this big giant Goliath is coming in and defeating Israel. And if you're familiar with the Bible, you've heard this story before, but it's all about, they're about to all go down because this big Philistine giant is kicking their butts. And so what do when they have a war problem? They do what makes sense. They look for a warrior. So they are convinced, Israel is convinced that the one who will save them is a warrior king. And so they go all throughout the nation looking for warrior after warrior after warrior, and Goliath defeats them all. And right now in America, we're in the exact same mentality. Is we think what's going to save us from all this is a warrior. We think that the way we're going to beat this is to declare war on each other. The other night, my wife was showing me on Facebook it was literally war erupted. And it was coming from both sides, from the left and from the right. On the left, it was, Donald Trump, we're going to take him down. We got to defeat him to, live through this. And on the right, it was, this kind of racist, like, oh, these Chinese, and it was just all the sides were coming at each other because instinctually, whenever we see a crisis, we think that we need a warrior to come and to save us. And that's exactly what they had done in Israel, is they had searched through the warriors. And then this kid, David, this shepherd from Bethlehem, steps up. And everybody looks at this shepherd from Bethlehem and says, this can't be right. I mean, he's a shepherd. Like, he doesn't have war experience. He doesn't have battle experience. And Saul looks at him and is like, I don't think you're the guy for this. But David insists, send me out there. Send me the shepherd out there to fight Goliath. What in the world? And so they have this huge expectation that it's going to be a warrior. And it hasn't worked thus far, and they have nothing to lose. So let's send out David the shepherd. And what's funny is, fast forward a few hundred years from the time of David, almost 1,000 years from the time of David, to the first century. And there's all this expectation about a Messiah that's going to come. And we have rabbinical literature that's contemporary to the time of Christ and the time before Christ. And all the Jewish world is asking, who is this coming Messiah going to be? And they all land on the exact same conclusion, is that this Messiah that's going to save them is going to be this warrior king. He's going to be this mighty, violent warrior in Israel is going to come. And at that time, they're under the occupation of the Roman Empire. And so they're like, we're going to have a warrior king who's our Messiah, who's going to come in and he's going to kick butt and kick Roman butt and overthrow them. And so Jesus, another man from Bethlehem, who would call himself the Good Shepherd, steps into the scene against the expectations of a warrior. And the entire world shakes their head and says, this can't be right. We want a warrior king. We're not looking for a shepherd. In fact, when Christ was crucified, that was the biggest shock. They expected him to come in and kill the Romans, be a warrior. But instead, the Romans were now killing him. So they look at him and say, if you're really the Messiah, if you're really the messianic warrior king, save yourself, get some angels down here to kick butt. But he didn't. He wasn't fulfilling their expectations to be a warrior king because Jesus was something very different. Much like David back 1,000 years earlier. David, they expected him to be the warrior king even though he was a shepherd, so they put him in all of this warrior's armor, this scaled armor, so that he could go in and fight with a sword and kill Goliath. And after they put him on him, David looks back and says, I can't do this with this armor, with this sword. I can't. And he says, give me my tools that I used as a shepherd. Give me my sling. Give me what I used out in the fields as a shepherd. Now, what happens is he takes those shepherd's tools and he's finally victorious and defeats Goliath. If you look at verse 4 of Psalm 23, it says, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And there's an interesting little play on words here in the original language. The word that we translate staff, as in shepherd's staff, which a shepherd would use to guide us, to guide a sheep, is the same word that's used for a king's scepter. We don't have a warrior king here. We have a shepherd king. And it's that shepherd king that slays Goliath and defeats the big threat to God's kingdom, to the kingdom of Israel in that day. And Goliath's head is placed at a place called Golgotha, which would go down as the place of the skull. What's amazing is this Golgotha, this place of the skull, would be the place where Israel's ultimate shepherd king from Bethlehem would come. But this shepherd king went even further than David in using the shepherd's tools. This shepherd king would be the good shepherd who would lay down his life for the sheep. Y'all, we don't need a warrior king. We need a shepherd king. We need a king. We need leadership in this hour that's not leading through the power of force, but one that's leading through the power of love. Not leading by taking, but leading by giving. Think about this. If at any moment in history I asked you, who is the most powerful man in the world? Who's the most powerful man in the world? And right now, I guess it's the President of the United States. At another point, it was Charlemagne. At another point, Napoleon, so on and so forth. What makes any given person throughout world history the most powerful man in the world? Think about it. Why is Donald Trump the most powerful man in the world right now? Why has any man ever been the most powerful man in the world right now? It's been this: their ability to inflict death. The reason Donald Trump is the most powerful man in the world is because he could hit a button right now and nuke everybody. The reason Alexander, all of these guys were most powerful is they had the biggest army and they had the most potential power to inflict death. But here, at this place called Golgotha, the place of the skull, we have Christ come And his power doesn't come from giving death to others. His power comes from taking death upon himself. His power doesn't come from his ability to kill. Jesus' power is radically different. Jesus' power comes from his ability to give life. Here, we have a shepherd king who doesn't rule by the power of death, but a shepherd king who rules by the power of life, by the ability to give everyone that turns to him the life that he laid down. I want to close this with this quote by Napoleon Bonaparte, who was that most powerful man in the world. Napoleon said this, "I know men, and I tell you that Jesus Christ is no mere man. Between him and every person in the world, there is no possible term of comparison. Alexander, Caesar, Charlemagne, and I have founded empires. But on what did we rest? The creations of our genius? Upon force. But Jesus Christ founded his empire upon love. And at this hour, millions of men would die for him." Remember today, we don't need another warrior king. We need a shepherd king.